The artwork is like eerily similar to that of Operation Ivy. It's very black and white, high contrast. And then they were so smart because one of the things they did was they came up with a little logo guy. So in May of 96, you get Suicide Machines Destruction by Definition. And I was listening to somebody talk about the title of that album.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your thoughts on that title?
Well, it's just about what kind of band they were going to be labeled. It goes back to our earlier conversation. So that's why it's the destruction by definition. Because if you wanted to simplify that, that's what you're going to box us in on. That's
right.
What, that's what we'll be refined to. Is that basically what you were?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, man, maybe I'm missing something here. I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth.
Page. Yeah.
Okay. So I also have a cassette tape of theirs too, man, which is cool. I love cassettes. If anybody hasn't figured that out by now, this is actually from '96. Destruction by Definition is a great name. Oh, I actually pulled that out for a reason. The artwork is like eerily similar to that of Operation Ivy. It's very black and white, high contrast. And then they were so smart because one of the things they did was they came up with a little logo guy. Let me see if it's in here. It should be. Oh, son of a bitch. Is it not in here? Is it only on the CD?
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. Well, there's a little logo dude, and it's like a dancing guy with I think it's got a syringe in his hand. But anyways, it's incredibly similar to Operation Ivy. And I'm certain that was all done intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, Suicide Machines are very much what Operation Ivy would have sounded like had they have just never broken up and then signed to a major label in like 1994. Right. The resulting album would have been this.
It's so crazy, right? And then there's Against All Authority, which is like if they would have stayed on an indie label.
Against All Authority is like if they have like a bad incident that happens to them on tour and they get angry, and then that's they become Against All Authority. That's how the evolution of those bands go. They're all innocent and teenagers, and then they're like street hoods by the time they get to their 30s or something.
Well, I hold on. I'm looking for this stupid thing. It's driving me crazy. Okay, here we go. So look at this little guy.
Yeah.
Not fans of Operation Ivy, are they? I mean, come on.
No. Well, and they've been pretty open about it over the years about how much they were influenced by.
Right. I mean, how could they not?
They're from the Midwest, and they tell the story in the ska documentary. And I know everyone, like we're from Texas and New Mexico, respectively. We live in warm places, but it still gets cold in the winter. And there is nothing like some ska on a winter morning, like on the way to school, and it's sounding so tropical and like so upbeat, and you're like, just that miserable morning feeling. And like they always related that. That's how they would listen. They would listen to Energy. Like that, and that's
yeah.
I think that Midwest thing is kind of interesting because I think of them as like an East Coast band. Like I had to look up where they were from because I always think of them as like a New York,
like California to me.
See, that's what's funny because I was like, what's kind of like Op Ivy meets the Bouncing Souls meets like, but there's like a dark element. They're both darker and poppier than like Operation Ivy. I don't know what it is, or maybe like there's a more much, as we said, like the stakes are kind of low in the Operation Ivy stuff. The stakes are a little higher. There's songs about like some really serious topics, and then there's a song about like wearing Vans, which again is just that's right out of like the BMX core stuff that you would get out of like a Bouncing Souls. So it's a very eclectic mix of a lot of parts of punk and pop punk and skate punk subculture.
Well, like you said, they were what Operation Ivy would have been had they stayed around. They're the natural progression of that sound. They're a little glossier, a little cleaner, bigger topical songwriting because they would have been a little older. Yeah, dude, this album affected me in a great way. It was one of the first punk albums I ever owned. When it came out, it was, since it was on a major label, what was it, like Hollywood, I think is what it was on?
Hollywood, yeah.
I remember very clearly walking through, like, the cover art of a punk album, at least in the 90s, was a very, very important. Mm-hmm. And if you look again, I'm sorry I keep bringing this up, but if you look at the cover of this album, okay, those guys represent you and I more than a cover of like a Casualties record did.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw this, and I was like, "Oh man, that bright red with the white. I mean, this looks exactly like artwork I create right now." And it's like, man, everything from the back of it. I mean, how do you not pick this up and then immediately gravitate towards it when you're like a skateboarding 15-year-old punk kid?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was like 14 or so, I only had a little bit of money. I was like cutting grass for money. So if I bought a CD, boy, it had to be a good one. I didn't have enough money to buy shit like that. So I bought And Out Come the Wolves. I'm pretty sure I bought Let's Go. I think I might have been given that, though. I can't remember. But I bought MXPX Life in General because I was able to convince my mom that they were like good kids and they weren't actually being punk rockers. And I was given a copy of NoFX I Heard It Suck Live, and then I got a little bit of money together and I bought the Suicide Machines. So for like a fucking year or maybe even 2 years, bro, that's all the punk music I had was those 4 records. Man, I wore that shit out, dude. Man, oh my goodness. I can't wait to tell you about Battle Hymns, dude, next week. I got a little story about that. And I think that this record, it's impactful immediately. New Girl, while a song about a girl, is so fast. Dude, it's like the drums start off and it's got that little drum roll and then it kicks in. The tempo is so upbeat. It's just like da 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 da. It does not let go of you, man. SOS, dude, Break the Glass, No Face. Hey, bro, it's just like banger after banger after banger. These guys know how to write a song. That's what's a little different with this band. And say, how do I say this without sounding like a jerk? Mm-hmm. I always compare these guys with Against All Authority. Mm-hmm. These dudes can write a better hook.
Yeah.
Against All Authority has songs that I like as much or more, but they don't have an album that is as good as this.
Yeah, their music is more of like passion instilling, I would say.
Right.
There's songs that do that on this album, but this album is actually more like entertaining at the same time.
Right. They are different in different lanes, but like I compare them a lot because I got them around the same time.
I always associate them very, very close with each other as well. Like I generally do.
But yeah, man, and there's some really good deep cuts on this album, and there's a lot of good lyrical content. It's like it's like below the surface. Like when you see stuff like New Girl, right? You get away from that. You're like, oh, I get it. I like that song. A Van song. Oh, that's a fun song. I wrote down Face Values is a fantastic song. Look at the lyrics. And so I'm going to pull the lyrics up right now real quick. When did you discover this record? Was it around the time it came out, or was it later in life?
It'd be like in the early 2000s, just when I was discovering like Warped Tour in general. Like I remember seeing them on a Warped Tour, and they were just sort of in that mix. And I would have never guessed though until years later that it was on a major label. Like I just assumed it was like on Side One Dummy or something.
I didn't understand major label stuff when I was that age, and so I didn't understand it until I was like probably out of high school. That I was like, oh wait, this isn't even like an indie label band.
No,
like,
and now listening back to this record though, it's totally has the gloss of a major label output versus again what like a Hellcat record from this time period.
Well, I just
sounded like, and so you can definitely hear that sort of big rock production on it.
I just got a new album. I say new album. Let me actually pull it off the shelf real quick. I want to look up this. What's it? Face Value?
Face Values.
Let's see. I want to show you this other thing I got too. I'm sorry, I'm being kind of wonky tonight. With okay, here we go. It says, "You've got no friends and you're so lonely. It does not have to be this way. Just be yourself, the one and only. It takes some time, but that's okay." Like, I'm sorry, but that's incredibly deep for a band that's singing about vans. And it's like, let's see. All right, no need to fight because everybody's different and there's nothing you can do about it. Just because I don't look like you or act like you, it doesn't make me any better or worse. I'm sorry, dude, but that's the kind of shit that a 19-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 7 needs to hear. That is like simple. Like it doesn't have like giant words in it. It's not got double entendres and double or triple entendres in there anywhere. It's just simple but deep, simple, effective, simple but also kind of complex, man. Like, I mean, bro, it says, see, I used to be just like you until I found better things to do than worry about what others think or wonder if there's something wrong with me. You hate yourself because you're not like them. Now understand then understand that this is wrong. You're better off doing your own thing, being yourself, and being strong. I don't know, man. I just found that super refreshing, I guess. When I heard it, I was like driving to work, and I was like, oh, I haven't heard this in a while. And then those lyrics kind of came through the speakers, and I stopped at a red light and wrote that down on my notes real quick. Like, look at these lyrics. Like, I don't know, man. I think that it's a pretty deep song for something as simple as it is. It's really, like I said, not complex words or anything, but
yeah, and I think it's not what you expect, because you do think of them as either in the tone of like New Girl or which is the one
SOS, Break Glass, Vans, all those songs
no,
are like
or like no face, which is very much like a street. Do you have like the street type of song, or like the no van? So you have those. What you were reading is more of like, again, what like you may hear on a mid 2000s Bouncing Souls or Pennywise, and that more like reflective stuff. So they have all three of those really on the same album. There's a lot.
Well,
on
the
this
title
album.
of the song is clever too. Face Values. It's a clever title.
There's a lot on this album. Like, there's a lot stuffed into these songs. It's while it is a lot of ska, and it doesn't quite wear you out, because like I have trouble listening to the more upbeat ska for like a whole album. Like that's hard for me to get
like
through.
Steak and Pickle for a whole record is tough to get through.
Yeah, and I like all those songs, I think, more in isolation. I think Suicide Machines hits close to that lane sometimes, because you have some of those songs that are just those super upbeat dance ones, but they mix it in with a lot of like heavy subject matter right in between, and I think it adds a really, really nice balance to the songs. It's funny too, because we say that they're post Operation Ivy, they're also post Rancid, they're also post Outcome the Wolf, so they also have that to be influenced by as well in their music.
I was gonna bring up this album. I can't find it streaming anywhere. I would imagine you've probably never heard this. I haven't heard much of it. The Suicide Machines on the Eve of Destruction, 1991 through 1995. It's got a fair amount of music on it. Let's see. Yeah, it's a double LP. I'm trying to figure out. Okay. Wow, it's got an early version of the Van song. That's cool. Let's see. 7. Okay, I think it's got 28 songs on it. I need to bust this open and listen to it in its entirety, because it's not on streaming or anything. Yeah, I want to know what this sounds like, because now that we're talking about like the glossy nature of the first record, I want to know what got them signed. I want to know what this might be a good topic for me to do like a deep dive, my own video about. Yeah,
because that is interesting, because like we were talking about like with Weezer last week, and it's kind of similar. Like, oh shoot, this is where they started from. Like this is where this is their debut. That's what's so funny about it. It's like the debut on a major. And again, and it makes sense though. Like Suicide Machines was always a little more popular than I ever really could explain. And it probably because they were on a major.
Even with a name like that, it's so crazy.
Yeah, and that's why I always said they were popular, because they would like whenever they would play live a lot around here, and their shows would get advertised like on the radio. They wouldn't.
I've only seen them one time, bro.
Yeah, I've seen them like twice. But
I'm watching them in a couple of months.
It was never to go see them though, and it's nothing against them, but it was always like one time they were touring with Anti-Flag, and I caught them on there, and so I've caught them a few times.
Oh man,
they've always been like the other thing. I've never caught them on like a big headline kind of situation.
Have you heard any of their later material?
A little bit of it. I can't recall it to you right now, but
okay. So this is how my life went with them. I got Destruction by Definition. And then Battle Hymns came out, and I was like, all right, dope. And then they did that Suicide Machine self-titled power pop record in the year 2000. Have you ever heard that record?
No, I feel like I don't even know that exists.
I beg you to listen to that. I want to know. I don't want to say nothing about it after this now. I was going to talk about it for a minute. I'm not going to. I want to hear your opinion on that. Then in 2001, they did Steal This Record. Then in 2003, they did A Match and Some Gasoline. 2008, War Profiteering is Killing Us All. 2020, Revolution Spring. So my point is that they never really stopped. But with the 2000 record, I completely stopped listening to them because it's so different. Now, that kind of gives away my opinion on it a little bit, except that I've revisited it as of late, so I'll just go into it, whatever, man. It's so different, bro. It's so different. I, in hindsight, really appreciate that they put that record out because it took some balls. Because I was like, oh, this sucks, dude, and I just quit listening to him. A Match and Some Gasoline is a great record. War Profiteering is also a great record. So those are like really good. I don't remember Steelers record very much though. It's in 2001. I probably never even heard that all the way through. But they're
I haven't either, dude.
Yeah, they have a lot more music than people realize.
Yeah, I remember the stuff from the early 2000s. I don't remember, but then some of this mid 2000s stuff. And they were on. I guess they were on Side One Dummy later. That's why I guess I just always assumed that they had been on Side One Dummy the entire time.
Well, they did a split with a band called, I can't even pronounce it. Coquettish. I don't know. Whatever. They did that like a year and a half ago. But Revolution Spring came out 2020, and I pre-ordered that and got it because the cover is very similar to the one of Destruction. Well, it's mostly because it's black and white, but it's got the picture of their little guy on it. But it's a good record, man. It's a really good record. It sounds a lot like their older material. I don't know. This band, I think they hold up too. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about this record in 2024?
Yeah, it's well, one, it like that gloss actually does help it still sound really well.
Right.
So it has no dated kind of sound to it. It's got that 90s sheen I'm always telling you about that sort of sounds perfect. I think it's another entry into that. Plus, it just like a lot of that ska music, I think the music, a lot of the music, when you look back at it, doesn't age too well in a modern context, but there's a lot of modern music uses a lot of pieces of that music or a lot of stuff that's similar to that music. And I think this fits in like really well because it never gets quite as like, again, there's a point sometimes with the Boss Tones or Real Big Fish or some of those where it gets a little like silly or like you just don't want to listen to it. This one, it holds up.
I don't find that with the Boss Tones, but almost, dude, there's only a handful of ska bands I can say that about. The Boss Tones, these guys, Against All Authority. The Boss Tones lean more into like actual punk rock to me than they do like Real Big Fish or even Mustard Plug and stuff where it is like a little too lighthearted, a little too Aquabatsy for me.
Yeah, and I think Suicide Machine strikes like such a perfect balance between the two.
Yeah,
like, that's really what their talent is, and that's why I think they age really well because
their drummer. Whew.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, do you know who their drummer was on this album? Hold on. This is about to Derek, fuck you up, I think. Yes, bro. Yeah. That's so crazy to me.
You know, Derek was around for. Derek has a weird backstory. He was actually offered the Michael Graves spot before, like, not to be the drummer in the Misfits. Like, yeah,
to be a singer.
Yeah, to be in that leader.
That's so weird. Okay, one thing I want to ask you. You're talking about the sound holds up, right?
Yeah.
I also thought that the sound of the Operation Ivy album holds up really well. So, in the interest of pissing off everybody, let's talk Operation Ivy versus Destruction by Definition. So, by that, I just mean, which one do you think sounds better sonically? Do you have one that you think is actually objectively better, but you also kind of like the other one better? Or like, do you think one holds up more than the other? I honestly feel like they are so different, but they just kind of go together.
Yeah, so they very much feel like compliment albums. Like if you wanted to show someone ska-punk, you'd probably show them Op Ivy and then have them listen to this. Like here's how it kind of started and here's how it ended up.
Or you might reverse it and go, here's the glossy shit. You like this? Okay. Oh, you do? Cool. Check this out.
It would really depend on the kind of music fan in terms of like how this holds up. And I really think that's a bit on the taste. If you like if that glossiness is important to you, I think the Suicide Machines album would be the way to go. If you're into any type of indie or any kind of like really artistic style of really anything, if you're more artistically inclined, I think if you're more like in the musical side of it, into like the dancing and that kind of stuff and that side of the art, I think the Suicide Machines would appeal to you more. If you're more into the art side and the poetic side of music and that sort of beat side, I think that the Op Ivy would appeal to you more. I personally like the Op Ivy quite a bit more, although I feel like that's not even an unbiased opinion because I don't feel that it's fair. I do think Suicide Machines is probably more representative of more music I like, because more music I like sounds more directly like the Suicide Machines.
That's kind of where I was
Op
headed with
Ivy
this.
is more. It's got the more influential thing. Again, where it sort of stands out on its own. I think Suicide Machines is probably more representative of stuff I like, even if I like Operation Ivy quite a bit more.
It's funny because I bet if you took, 500 kids and let them hear both albums, they would probably, it would be an overwhelmingly large amount of them that would pick Suicide Machines because it's glossier. But that's exactly what we like about punk rock music, is that it's not always glossy. It's more rugged, rough around the edges. I think that the songwriting and the lyrical ability of the dudes in Operation Ivy, I won't even say the lyrical ability, because their lyrics weren't like, they were great, but they weren't like complex, if that makes any sense. I'm not trying to say anything against this and rude or anything. It's one of my favorite things.
I think it's more in what makes it powerful is the delivery of them. I think
right.
So the lyrics do resonate, even if they're not. The Suicide Machines have more complex lyrics, I think, if you want to.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that the Operation Ivy stuff, I think, is a little more timeless. I think that their songwriting ability is a little bit better as far as like just timeless, impactful songwriting. But the lyrical ability and the complex playing of the Suicide Machines is a little bit better. Like, their drummer is ridiculous. Like, well, I mean, especially Derek playing on this album. I mean, the speed that he plays with is incredible. I do think it's a very unfair comparison, though. At the end of the day, it's like, how can you possibly compare Operation Ivy to Destruction by Definition? Like, you really can't.
Yeah, and they're two things that it's more of a they're two things that really complement each other, I think, than you would compare.
It was a trick question. It's just more like let's talk about
they're good albums to pair with, though, because I think you do see the evolution of where that sound could, because you could argue this represents more of the sound of Operation Ivy than what Rancid went on to represent. You know what I mean? Like that.
I think so.
That's actually that's what would really be the argument to kind of debate, because obviously there's the more shared DNA, but this more sounds like it'd be influenced by it because Rancid has its own identity, and this feels like it has maybe less of its own identity if it's just purely in relation to something like Op Ivy. Again, we are splitting the hairiest of hairs here, but that's kind of what a podcast is.
That's what the podcast is for, though. We're supposed to have these really silly, senseless conversations that just get people talking. It's all about conversation. It's all about dialogue, not necessarily about right or wrong. I don't think people understand that about questions that I ask on here. I often ask questions that don't need to be asked. They're simply there to get a dialogue going so that we can keep this alive, because that's what it's about. It's about the conversation. It's about change as well as roots. It's about all of it. And I don't think you would get a title like Destruction by Definition without Operation Ivy existing. Like, they could have been the same exact band writing very similar music. That title is so Op Ivy. It's so Operation Ivy. Their artwork is Operation Ivy. Their logo is Operation Ivy. And I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing that somebody that we love that much can also be loved that much by somebody else that starts another band that we also love close to that
very
much.
Very much a tribute to their legacy, I think.
Very, very much. I love both bands just so much, dude. It's pretty crazy, man. I love both of these albums a lot. I will say that dude, you know what's a really good point to make, actually? That you remember how we were talking about like what would have happened had they kept going with Operation Ivy?
Yeah.
The self-titled Suicide Machines album was what would have happened. They would have gotten a second album, would have been pretty good probably, and then their third album would have been like something completely different, because with these dudes you couldn't have had the same record, man. And I think that's one of the things that they have in common, is that because by the third record they had this different album, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
I hate this album, and I'm just looking at the cover.
Oh, bro, listen to the record. Listen to it. Oh, yeah, dude, the cover's wild, dude. The cover's wild. When I first saw it, I was like, I don't know if I want to buy this, but I was young. I was like, I got to get it. And I love this record now. I'll be honest with you. I listened to it. It's good. But you have to be able to accept that it's not like their other music. Right. It's like Father of All for Green Day fans. Like, it really is, actually. Yeah, man, I think that's the kind of stuff we would have gotten. They wouldn't have been able to remain the same band. Those dudes are too artistic, and they've got too much going on. I mean, look at Rancid, how much they change all the time. They got so much kind of music in just a simple punk band, because they're not a simple punk band. They're very complex. Bro, I can talk about this shit for another 2 hours. I love these records. I think, okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can find this on YouTube somewhere. I don't want to crack it open tonight because it ain't got nothing to do with not wanting to open it. I just don't want to sit down and listen to a record. I have other things I need to do, so I need to be able to listen to it on my headphones. But if I listen to this and I think it's good enough, I'll send you a link, and if you can listen to it, if you like it, I have another copy. I'll just give it to you.
Okay.